Sometimes it's nice to just watch a pleasant little film, you know, because ultimately this is a movie about a humble family living in their comfortable home with not a cell phone in sight. It's just people enjoying the moment of absolute terror. Yeah, so I gotta say that obviously Evil Dead Rise is predictably unhinged, but in an unpredictable way, so much so that I was not ready for this film. It had me in awe, and I'm having trouble describing just how absolutely insane the entire thing is, and I don't want to do it injustice, but there's just something about this film that I think needs to be experienced, especially if you're a fan of the Evil Dead films or just horror films in general. It's something that I'm having trouble describing because it was so visceral. It was brilliant. It was nothing short of incredible. And now I'm just using too many describing words and I should get into actually talking about the film. So, this is what I have to say. Evil Dead Rise is a film with not a shred of hesitancy in just about any aspect of the film. It's a movie that goes all in so hard, so much so that it had me engaged and honestly enraptured to see what next level of insanity it would reach by the very next second constantly. Like seriously, I watched this entire film with both my mouth and eyes completely agape the entire time. Like I was stuck on YouTuber thumbnail mode, like indefinitely, just like this. Like I probably looked like an idiot as I had that face, as I enjoyed myself, as I got creeped the fuck out, as I laughed throughout the entire thing. It was just such a joy. And it's really all because of the one main actor in this film, Alyssa Sutherland, as the haunted, possessed mum character who absolutely made this movie what it was. If it wasn't for her incredible performance as both an empathetic, yet cool, yet struggling, yet loving modern mum, and then on the flip side, early on as she gets possessed, she turns into this manic, merciless, supernatural beast, smiling from ear to ear as she petrifies everyone in the movie, including her family and the audience watching alike. I can't praise her enough, seriously. And the film overall too. It was bussin'. For real, no cap. You know? It's a young people terminology. But as for the rest of the film though, it also pushes everything to the extreme along with Sutherland's performance here. Like for instance, the movie has no chill and isn't afraid and in fact is devilishly gleeful when it comes to putting child characters in mortal danger, as the whole movie just sprays blood literally everywhere and kills off main characters on a whim with vicious savagery. This is a film that, just by the way, earns its Aussie R rating, which is a rarity when it comes to what our movies here get rated. I'm not saying this is an Australian film, I just mean in Australian cinemas, the R rating, it's kind of rare to see, and this is one that definitely earned that R rating. I could not see it be any lower than that. And along with that comes a sense of danger for all of the characters involved as well. Like I said, the movie's not afraid of putting child characters in danger, and it's not scared of just about any aspect when it comes to which characters they're gonna put in danger and all that kind of stuff. It's not a film that has a heavy amount of plot armor or anything like that, which is very nice to see when I just came out of Scream 6 a few weeks ago, whenever that was, and my big problem with that was that everybody just felt like it was invincible, but no. With Evil Dead Rise, anybody can go at pretty much any moment, and it just raises the stakes. It makes the entire film just feel really, it makes you feel on edge as you watch. It's really going to add to your stress levels, I gotta say. Despite how silly it can be as well, it's a film that really isn't afraid to just kill the characters whenever the fuck they want. You can see some through lines within the script though, and you can kind of, you know, there's a bit of predictability when it comes to which characters are going to survive. I won't completely lie and just say it's completely unobvious, but there is a hint of uncertainty the entire time, I will say, and I think that is something to definitely be appreciated in a horror film. Anyway though, the film itself though, as I haven't mentioned from then on, is about a family living in a high-rise apartment when all hell breaks loose following an earthquake, which when combined with childish curiosity, unfortunately eventually leads to the classic Evil Dead Book of the Dead book to be discovered and a new curse to be awokened, because of course one of the dipshits who finds this book wants to experiment and have a look at the mysterious book and whatever, and accidentally dooms everybody, starting off with the mum of the family, as I've already mentioned, and only bloody results escalate from there. And it's here where I just have to say something though. Look, there'll be purists when it comes to this film and for the original, okay? Like there is with every franchise, especially horror franchises. You know, whenever a new sequel or even reboot comes out, especially within the horror genre, there's always those people who need to just be like, no, please don't add to this franchise, don't fuck up the legacy. There's always these people who are always really worried that new entry is just going to ruin everything, which is kind of a silly a silly worry, if you ask me anyway. Like, when it comes to films like last year's Chainsaw Massacre movie that came out, it's not like just because people didn't like that movie and it was like not that great and whatever, it doesn't mean that it was an absolute disgrace to the original or to the franchise at all. Because it's not like, even if you thought that Chainsaw Massacre movie was terrible, it's not like that ruins anything when it comes to the original. It doesn't taint it in any way. It doesn't change the fact that it exists and it's there and you can watch it. And it just isn't that big of a deal, especially when it comes to reboots that don't actually have anything to do with the continuity of the preceding films, you know? Now, I won't say that this is the case all the time. Like, when it comes to Halloween Ends, for example, which directly fucks over the previous two films, and also when it comes to other movies not in the horror genre, like Rise of Skywalker, which does that even worse. I can't defend those movies, but when it comes to movies that don't really have too much to do with the continuity and it's just a fresh reboot, you know, I think that we should be a bit more open to the idea of maybe enjoying these sorts of films. Sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be great, okay? And with Evil Dead Rise, I do think that this one is one of those examples of being absolutely great as just another fun little unnecessary entry to a franchise that probably didn't absolutely need it, but is not ruined at all in any sort of way, and in fact is strengthened by Rise. Rise makes Evil Dead a stronger franchise. But look, I don't want to just spend this entire video comparing Evil Dead Rise to the rest of the franchise, even though I do think that Rise is easily one of the best. I'll take, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's dangerous saying that online, I don't know. I'll get more into that at the end of this video, but just a warning for you there. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to just compare this movie to all of the other films because, you know, I want to single Rise out and talk about what the film actually is, not just in comparison to the rest of the films. But it also is a completely different breed to a lot of these movies as well. Like when it comes to Evil Dead 2 and especially Army of Darkness, they go off in a completely different direction. They are a lot more cartoony. They are not really trying to be scary in any way. And so they are really different beasts entirely. And it wouldn't really be fair to compare them fully in a one-for-one kind of way, where it's like, well, this one's scarier, this one's sillier. It doesn't always quite compare mathematically, artistically, whatever the word is, one-for-one perfectly in that kind of way. But if I am comparing this film to the original Evil Dead, I just gotta say, I think you are absolutely out of your mind if you try and argue back, and I'll be damned if you try and say that this film, Evil Dead Rise, isn't everything that the original film could have ever dreamed to be and more. And I've also just got to point out that this movie isn't watered down in any way. It's not an M-rated or the American equivalent PG-13 rated film. It doesn't turn itself into a lesser film. It's not afraid of showing the blood, showing the gore, and all these sorts of things. And it's not a reflection of all those things that people always complain about when it comes to modern movies, especially in the horror genre, who say that they don't make movies for adults anymore, they don't make films how they used to, and that they just make lame, tame baby entertainment. Well, I just gotta say that I think Evil Dead Rise proves that there's still a breath of life in modern cinema and new horror, and that brutal cinema still has a place today. And in fact, I'd even argue back that films have maybe even gotten more brutal in recent times, like with last year's Terrifier 2 and 2021's Halloween Kills, and now this. Film is getting brutal, baby. And in Evil Dead Rise's case, I'd even say that at times it feels like the film is pushing the envelope a little too much. Not in terms of disturbing thematic substance or anything like that, but more so with the gore and all the things that come along with that, including scenes involving a cheese grating on someone's skin, dragging them, and eyeballs being chewed and spat out, and the old favorite chainsaw, of course, making an appearance. And with all that, though, I do have to say comes a maybe slight negative, or honestly a positive, depending on how you look at it. And that is because of just how comfortable this film is with showing the brutality, that it does feel very mean-spirited. And that's not going to sound like a bad thing, depending on who you are. But for me, there is a bit of a lack of hope for the characters involved who find themselves stuck and fucked over in more ways than one, with pretty much seemingly no chance of survival or an easy way out. It does definitely feel a bit nihilistic at times. It's not always the most joyous film, even though I got a lot of joy out of it, if that makes any sense. Depending on who you are, you might not feel that way, or you might feel even worse about this stuff, or you know, everyone's different. But the film is also about this family all being gaslit and bullied by these intruding demons who are wearing their loved ones' faces as well. And the thought of being tortured and terrorized by your own fucked up versions of your loved ones like this is actually pretty terrifying here. And the whole movie is pretty unpleasant, I gotta say. So if you're not in that, you know, if you're not in that mind space, if you're not ready for that kind of thing, this could be looked at as a negative. But if you're looking for brutality, well, Well, it's not. When the situation becomes children looking at their own mum who they love and trust more than anything, who still looks kind of like her but is broken, and can still sound kind of like her but is inhuman, but who acts nothing like her as she crawls along the walls and ceiling Hereditary style and tears the family apart both metaphorically and literally, it all becomes pretty horribly upsetting, I won't lie. And that's a good thing. Sometimes films can be kind of scared to come off with that sort of tone. Sometimes films feel like they have to go with that plot armor. Sometimes films feel like they can't kill off characters because then where are we going to go from there? Evil Dead Rise really isn't afraid to do anything, giving the film somewhat of enough gravitas that it holds true with its eccentricity, as it's always riding the line between becoming a preposterous cartoon and standing its ground as a film worthy of being disturbed by. Because this film makes you feel both and all sorts of different things in that kind of way, as you're watching silly, in-your-face, crazy shit occur, but you're also being genuinely creeped out, and it's not an easy balance to hold. And Evil Dead Rise really leans into its over-the-top nature, which of course was inspired by what came before it, as it wears its batshit absurdity on its sleeve, so much so that it could be funny at times, it could be downright fucking hysterical at many moments as well. And it makes you laugh at things that you shouldn't laugh at too. It makes you laugh at children fucking getting killed. It makes you laugh at the most horrid stuff, and it would just make you feel kind of bad, especially when you were having such a fun time watching the characters just in the worst possible situation that they could be in. And then the film from then on would kind of continue on to raise that absurdity, so much so that it kind of cranked back everything onto the next level into being legitimately scary all over again. This is a movie that could have come off as just completely unrestrained in such a shitty and stupid way. It could have been very, very much a mess, but somehow they pulled it all off, as traumatic would be a vast understatement for describing what the main characters go through, despite the audience getting to have so much fun along the way watching these people go through the absolute worst thing that could possibly be happening to them throughout the entire film. And yet still, there I am laughing like an insane person. That's what this movie does to you. Look, I guess if I had to come up with another criticism, which I don't think I really have to, but for the sake of the argument and being thorough, let me say that I do think that Evil Dead Rise isn't a game changer, okay? That is one thing that I can say about it a bit negatively. That's about as bad as the thing I can say about it. It's a film about evil demons possessing people, and violence and chaos ensues. It follows suit among its predecessors, as well as a lot of the other films within this possession subgenre. It doesn't exactly break new ground in the script department, okay? But at least it delivers on this pretty unoriginal idea, at least with an original setting, a new kind of setting we haven't seen before, and an interesting family dynamic with fairly shallow, albeit likable enough characters. And I wouldn't really call it anything close to derivative though, even if it was pretty familiar, if that makes any sense. It does deal with familiar tropes that we've seen in the series before, but it adds its own spice of personality and does more than enough to bring it up to a frankly god-tier Evil Dead film. So yeah, it may not be particularly original in its material, I suppose, but I think it understands the material better than a lot of other films when it comes to this subgenre. And the predecessing film, the 2013 remake Evil Dead film, which just came off as morbid and not very fun. Instead, Evil Dead Rise executes what it's going for so well, but in a very, very fun way too. Everything about Evil Dead Rise is so full on and turned up to fucking 12 with buckets, no not buckets, but pools, no not pools, but fucking skyscrapers of blood, as well as an unrelenting sense of, I'll say it, evil. Evil Dead Rise pulls you in and screams in your face with such intensity that despite how silly it can be, I really think it's going to absolutely terrify the ever-living shit out of some of its viewers too. I'm having a hard time even picturing normies who don't watch much horror going into seeing this in cinemas and staying long enough to see the end credits, because I honestly do not think a lot of people are going to be able to handle this fucking thing. And I don't want to overstep the boundaries of what to expect from this film. I don't want to promise the stars and say that it's everything and it's the purpose of life and it's like nothing you've ever seen before, because it is. You've seen films like this before, but it's just so fun. That's really all I have to say, you know? For the hardcore horror fans, Evil Dead Rise is just what we've been looking for, following the Terrifier 2 shaped hole that we have in our hearts since that film came out. This is another one just as good as that. I found it to be nothing short of incredible, and not just in a dumb fun way, but in a way where I truly respect what extent of both fright and stupid the film is able to reach both at the same time. It's grim, dark, and almost nihilistic at times too, all while being comically intense in a way that makes you uncomfortably laugh because you don't even know how else to react. You don't know what to expect from this film, and it just makes you sit there being like, fuck, okay, I guess it went there. I love this movie, and I highly recommend it to anyone who reckons it might be their bag, and for anyone who actually thinks that they can handle the fucking thing, I gotta say too. Because, like, for instance, my dad, who cannot sit through gore or horror movies in any way, don't watch this, Dad. Not that you were going to anyway. I'd even then dare to say, though, just by the way, as I alluded to earlier, that Evil Dead Rise is my favorite Evil Dead movie? Is it? I don't know. It's either my favorite or my second favorite, okay? Rivaled only with Evil Dead 2. This is Evil Dead 2 levels of Evil Dead. That's what I will say. It is that good. And maybe you're going to think that's blasphemous of me to say. Maybe you're going to think, no, nothing can touch those original films. You know, and I'm an idiot if I think so. And if you think that, that's fair enough. We're all different. Like I said, you can have your opinion. But Evil Dead Rise impressed me so much that I wouldn't have trouble calling this my absolute favorite. I haven't fully decided yet. 2 might stick that landing just a bit more because it has Ash in it. And Ash is awesome. You know, Rise, if it lacks anything, Rise definitely lacks Ash, which is unfortunate, I suppose, because everything's better with him. But this is fucking up there, man. This is up there. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, so that's about it. I loved Evil Dead. Sorry this review was a little bit late. I know I usually get my new release reviews usually up the day of release. I always try to do that. And so if you were expecting that and didn't see my post from a few days ago where I was explaining that I wouldn't be able to do that, which you might not have, because I don't know, you probably don't see all my fucking YouTube posts. Who am I? Who cares? But anyway, I'm just saying, I apologize anyway if you were waiting for my review or something. Here it is. It's up now. And I have decided that I think, just by the way, Beau is Afraid, I'm not going to make a video for that film. I was originally going to do the Evil Dead and Beau is Afraid videos at the same time, but I just don't think I have strong enough feelings about Beau is Afraid or enough to say to really justify making a whole video talking about it. I'll just say here, I didn't love it. It was my most anticipated film of the year, and it was a movie that pissed me off because the first half had me really, really, really loving it, and then just the whole second half, each moment just convinced me more and more. Oh yeah, you don't like this movie. Oh, this sucks. It's like every next scene, it was just like, oh, you're undoing everything that you built up with the first half. So I guess that's about all that I have to say about both of those films. Anyway, that's Evil Dead Rise and all that stuff. But before you go, please do the thing, put your like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. I'm out of here. Bye.